By golly, I'm here to introduce Rick Roberts, our Veterans Committee Chairman. And Rick has been quite an honor since he came on the board, retired from the board, continues to work and keep his daughter under control. So it's nice to see you all this evening. And so, Rick, if you would, have the floor.
Okay, well, my name is Rick Roberts, and I've been on the Veterans Committee Board since day one. I don't even know how many years that's been, but it's been a long time. And a lot of members are still with me on the board. We've lost some, but there's still a bunch around. The Veterans Committee, oh, sorry. Yeah, you would definitely want to hear my voice, because I like the sound of my own voice. The Veterans Committee is probably one of the best committees we have in town. We're usually, we usually have quorum because we usually have enough people there. And these guys crack me up. They come in and they eat some donuts and and then they sit around when we're done and they talk for like another hour. So, but I do enjoy them, and we do work on different things for the village. One of the big things that we did years back is we got the plaza built for veterans, and the war dog, which I call it the war bear because that thing is gigantic. One of the things I'm working on is the war cat. Yes. His cats actually did a lot for in the different wars and stuff. And a lot of times, a lot of them lost their lives, but anyway, we'll get off the war cat thing. We have Herb Porter here tonight. My good friend is going to sing, and he's going to do the Star Spangled Banner for us and the invocation. And so I thank you again, Herb, for coming out and helping us out. Herb has been here forever, like I have, man. He always shows up, and it's always a pleasure to have him here. And it was a pleasure, I was just telling him, it was a pleasure when I served on the board, and Herb sat next to me because he used to make me laugh. Yeah, yeah. Yeah. I was definitely a younger guy. I have a son and a daughter that both contact me today to thank me for my service. I had a lot of people contacting me today, more than like usual. So, I have a younger sister who had three of her kids were in the service. So it's nice to hear from them too, But, and we've got our old Jim Kemper here, who's been around a long time. So I would like to thank all of you for coming out tonight. At least it's not bitter cold and it's not snowing. You know, the weather's pretty decent. So I would like to thank Post 5151 for coming out as usual and posting our colors for us. They always do such a good job. And so thank you guys. So, you know, I'm not going to spend a lot of time up here taking up your time, but I just want to once again thank you guys. And I've said this before, every time I look on that back wall and I see the picture up there that was taken in Iraq, in Baghdad, by members of the Army, and two of them were Hanover Park residents. It's the Army National Guard. It always makes me happy to see that they all came back, and you know, they did a good job. They took that flag right there, the flag of honor, is what they took over there, and they were in Baghdad, and they had like 10 minutes. They're like, let's get a picture of that flag. We got to get rolling, get out of here. So I always like to look at that. All right, at this time, Post 5151 is going to post the colors for us.
Guard, halt, lay out, pick. Prepare to post the colors. Colors, halt. Freeze, man, on.
Please join us in
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America, to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Oh, say, can you see by the dawn's early light what so proudly we hailed at the twilight's last gleaming, whose broad stripes and bright stars through the perilous fight o'er the ramparts we watched were so gallantly streaming, and the rocket's red glare, the bombs bursting in air, gave proof through the night that our flag was still there. Oh, say does that star-spangled banner yet wave o'er the land of the free and the home of the brave? The brave bow our heads. Heavenly Father, we come to take a moment to pause, reflect, and honor. Today we gather to express our deep gratitude for the bravery, dedication, and sacrifices of those who have served in our armed forces. On this Veteran Day, we remember the men and women who have answered the call to defend our nation's freedoms, often at great personal cost. May we honor their courage and commitment, never taking for granted the peace and liberty their service has secured for us. And may we always strive to be a nation worthy of their sacrifice, extending gratitude not only today, but in all the ways we can each day forward. With reverence, let us hold in our hearts those who serve, those still serving, and those who made the ultimate sacrifice. Amen.
Please have a seat. Herb has a marvelous, marvelous voice. We are blessed to have you with us. Thank you, Herb. In my, I'll try to be brief, but you all know what happens when you give the mayor a microphone. This event is pretty special to me. We've been doing it for a number of years, coming together. Not a lot of fanfare, but you can see in the village of Hanover Park, in our 5th year, being recognized by the Department of Labor for hiring veterans. I recall when, thank you. I recall in 1974, my wife and I, with our young child, came back, and I'm looking for a job. And it's, holy smokes, you know, where do I go? Who do I find? And the technology I was accustomed to was analog technology. And I went to an IT firm, and they said, so what's your experience? And so I said, well, I've been in the Navy for 6 years and worked on radar, computer systems, auto tracking systems, but they were analog. It wasn't matching this digital world. And so his last question to me was, did I know how a diode worked? Well, I knew how a diode worked. That was no big deal. He said, okay, you're hired. So, you know, it was like, oh my goodness, that was a blessing. I had a young child, and 2 weeks out of the Navy, and not sure where I was going. And this gentleman offered me a chance. And I took advantage of that, and I worked on their equipment. They had, you know, copiers and all kind of electronic equipment that I had to learn real quick. I went to Harper College to try to transition myself. And they said, listen, if you go to school, we'll pay for it. And I thought, wow, they're going to pay for it, you know. And so I went to Harper, and when I was drafted in 1968, I joined the Navy. I wasn't interested. I wanted to follow the shoes of my father, who served aboard the Santa Fe during World War II cruiser that saved over 2,000 men off the Franklin that was hit by kamikazes. And they pulled their ship alongside, probably broke every rule in the book, but that captain came up alongside. My father told me those stories about they had a hot bunk. And so joining the Navy was quite interesting. Not only did I have a 9-month school, but I went, our first cruise when I went through Adak, Alaska, and missed the sun for the whole time we were there. Ended up in Korea, 3 tours of Vietnam. I'm really jumping ahead here. If you ever seen the movie Top Gun, we led the Enterprise through the Straits of Malacca into the Indian Ocean. And we were extended 3 months, and we were all hoping to come home at Christmas. It didn't happen. And so on our way back, they said, listen, you guys, this is how the captain said it, you guys are so responsible, we were just doing our job. They allowed us, they permitted us to go visit Australia, Dunedin, New Zealand, way south. Dunedin was the first time a Navy ship had been there in 20 years. And there's a pathway, a straight going to Dunedin. And on both sides of that, women are waving their white handkerchiefs. That was an emotional time. I never forgot that. And so returning, we stopped at different islands where there were natives. Pago, I remember. I've never seen people so big. Oh my goodness, the biggest people I ever saw were in Pago, and they were selling bananas right in the street. They were selling all kinds of fresh fruit. And it's interesting, all the places we go, from Sasebo, Japan, to Pago, everybody really appreciated when we showed up. We were about freedom, we were about caring for one another, and no matter what people looked like, we all celebrated together. And today in Hanover Park, we celebrate together. Our classrooms, I visit classrooms every week. And I tell the children, do your homework. The teachers love it. The teachers don't have to tell them. They said, the mayor says, do your homework. But the whole idea of growing together in a community where we all live, eat, and breathe together, there's no this side or that side. We're a welcoming community. We've been that way as long as I've been the mayor. I visited a classroom today. Jayla was there, and Jayla's here tonight. And we were asking the children, what do you know? What do you think? And Jayla said, whoa, I got to tell you about my mom and dad. Really? What a story. Jayla says, my mom and dad wouldn't marry anybody unless they were a veteran, because they get it. So, Jayla, you're very proud of your mom and dad, and I'm so glad you twisted their arm to be here tonight. And it's nice. I got a call from your mom. Is this okay? Yes, it's okay. And that was an exciting time for me. And I had to stop what I was doing. And there's two gentlemen in the room that were in the classroom with you. And they heard your story. And they saw, what are you doing, Mayor? Well, I'm inviting Jayla and her mom and dad to come, and your brother come be with us tonight. So visiting the schools, one last thing I have to share with you, and it's become a passion of mine, and that's veterans serving veterans. Foxhole counselors, we like to call it, but the initiative, we have veterans, 22 a day perish. They take their own lives. We have to step up to that. We have to help those who are homeless and have lost their way to have a place they call home. We have to help those that have the opportunity to learn and reorganize themselves, and we've seen it happen within a year. There's a great method of that in Kansas City. A few of us visited there. The mayor of Hoffman Estates was with me. Chappie was there with us. Chappie's in the room somewhere. Where are you, Chappie? Yeah, he's sold, and then we've got to really pitch in. It's an evolution. It doesn't happen because the mayor says so, but we're bringing folks together. And the initiative to turn folks around, veterans, men or women, they might have children, to help them find a place, reorganize themselves, retrain themselves, and return to society as a credible member. That's what veterans do for veterans. And I'm working on that. If I didn't have so much on my plate, I would probably be a little bit ahead of the ball, but those things happen. So, Jayla, thanks for coming tonight with your mom and dad. That was pretty special. Next, I'd like, let's get. You're a young girl. To be so proud of mom and dad, I think that's pretty special. I work with a gentleman, we serve together on the Metro board. I don't know how we get together, but this gentleman is pretty special. Wes Beckton works with leaders across a wide range of industries, and he's earned degrees from Valley Forge Military College George Washington University, and Lewis University with his MBA. After graduating from George Washington University, Wes served as a platoon leader in the demilitarized zone in Korea, and later as the commander of the U.S. Army's Honor Guard Company. Wes then spent more than 20 years as healthcare executive, leading multi-specialty physician practices, surgery centers, working in academic medicine, eventually serving as the president of a, oh my goodness, ophthalmology practice. Did I say that okay? Oh my God, you know. It took me a while to get my degree, you know. So Wes also continues to serve on boards of the Commuter Rail Board Metra, New Directions Housing Corporation of Low Income Housing, and Pan American Bank. I don't know how you do it, Wes, but it's a pleasure to know you. Wes and Ingrid have been married for 35 years. You got another 20 to catch up to me, buddy. My wife tolerates me. And they have 3 adult children, a son-in-law, and 2 granddaughters. Wes is a frequent and passionate speaker and lecturer on topics that include leadership, diversity, and innovation. Sounds like Hanover Park. Wes, if you would, please. It's an honor to have Wes with us. Thank you. Very good.
Thank you. Thank you for that introduction and the kind words. And you all have a great mayor. I hope you realize that. He cares about people. When he was in class, did he listen to what you had to say? Yeah, he did. Leaders listen. He cares about people. He respects people. And you know what? I think he works hard every day for each and every resident. Everybody that works here, everybody that lives here, the Rod Craig that I know goes out of his way to make sure that Hanover Park is a better place every day. It's my honor to be able to talk to you today about Veterans Day. This is a very special day, and I'm going to tell you a little bit about my experience in the military, but here's the deal. All of you all that wore the uniform, you've got a story. Every one of us has a story. And some of those stories are even true. But on a serious note, if you don't remember anything else that I say tonight, I want you to think about this. Right now, in some faraway place that you can't find on a map or maybe even pronounce correctly, there's some young man or young woman standing guard on a ship, tired, cold, or too hot, homesick, scared out of their mind, but they're doing that to protect the freedoms that we as Americans get to enjoy here every day. Please let's remember to keep them in mind as we celebrate today and Veterans Day. You know what, when we get something for free, sometimes we don't value it very much, but freedom, the freedoms we enjoy as Americans, it isn't free. It was bought and paid for by people who wore our uniform and served our country. Some even made the ultimate sacrifice, and we remember those heroes and their loved ones on Memorial Day. Right now, around the world, a little less than 30 countries, 26 of them have compulsory or mandatory military service. The United States isn't one of them. Were you drafted? Okay, the draft ended in 1973. But our country is a little bit different. We've had an all-volunteer service, all-volunteer force since then. You know what? We're the only country, I'm going to quote a former president right now and say that we're the only country in the history of the world that wasn't founded on a religion or an ethnicity or geography. We were founded on an idea that anything is possible. And you know what? We were also founded by founders that envisioned a well-armed militia. Citizen soldiers who proudly served this country during time of war, then took off those uniforms and went back to their jobs and their families after the conflict was over. Service to our country, this country has always been an honorable calling. But from that poorly trained and under-equipped Continental Army at Valley Forge under the command of General Washington, to what we have now, which is the most lethal fighting force ever known on the face of this earth. Service to country, service in our country has always been a noble calling. You know, believe it or not, it was 20 plus years of armed conflict in Afghanistan. This was the longest sustained period of conflict in our history. But let's be honest about this. For most of us, unless we had a loved one deployed there, it probably wasn't front of mind. It wasn't something that many of us spent a lot of time thinking about. And you know what? That's what can happen sometimes when there's a separation between those that serve and those that don't. That's not how our country was founded. I was raised in a military family. I went to 17 different schools. That's right, 17 different schools, kindergarten through college. I went to a military high school, Valley Forge Military College. I also earned an ROTC scholarship, and I served in the National Guard for 2 years when I was getting my bachelor's degree at George Washington University. Maybe you're starting to detect a little bit of a theme here. Valley Forge Military Academy, George Washington University. The name of my wife and I's company is George Washington Street Partners. I love this country. I love everything about it, warts and all. And sometimes people ask me, hey, Wes, are you a Democrat or a Republican? And I'm proud to say I'm an American, and that comes first. You know what? I had the pleasure and the privilege to serve in Germany, in Korea, and throughout the United States. For 4 of those years, I served as the commander of the Army's Honor Guard Company. Let me tell you a little about this. Anybody ever been to Arlington National Cemetery? Okay. Those tomb guards that walk back and forth across the mat, those soldiers were part of my company. They're some of the finest young men and young women that you'll ever meet. The training they go through for 9 months before they're ever allowed to do it when the cemetery's open is rigorous, it's tough, and they are, again, some of the finest human beings that you'll ever encounter. This company performed all the ceremonies at the White House, the Pentagon, the Tomb of the Unknowns, the Army Drill Team. They were all part of this company. In order to be assigned to the unit at that time, you had to be handpicked by the regimental commander, you had to be 6 foot tall, you had to be Ranger qualified, you had to be right-handed, and you had to be able to get a presidential support duty security clearance, which was a top secret clearance. But you know what? Instead of getting a big head and thinking that we were something special, most of us developed this strong sense of humility about what an honor and privilege and responsibility it was to represent the United States of America to visiting heads of state, heads of government, and leaders of foreign militaries. It was one of the highlights of my military career. But being in the military, it's all about these stories, and these stories always include people. I want to tell you about 2 of my favorite veterans. I've got a lot of them, but tonight I just want to tell you about 2. First one is a guy named Abner Gannett. Is that name familiar to anybody in the room? He was the mayor of Elmhurst, where my wife and I live, back in the 80s. And Abner was responsible for me becoming a trustee at Elmhurst University. He got me on a bank board. He was volunteering when I was the director of an outpatient surgery center. We developed just an amazing friendship. And Abner had an experience that I'd like to share with you because I think it's relevant to what we may be experiencing today. Abner was asked to escort a visitor to the Elmhurst University campus. The visitor's name was Elie Wiesel. Is that name familiar to anybody? He's a Nobel Prize winner, an author, just an amazing humanitarian. But Abner was asked to escort him. They're walking around Elmhurst University's idyllic campus. They stop, they sit down, and Elie Wiesel asks Abner, my friend, hey, what did you do? Abner was older than me. Abner didn't look like me. Abner's from a different race, different religion. But he asked Abner, hey, what did you do during World War II? And Abner said, you know what? I can't talk about it. It's too hard. Elie Wiesel kept begging him, tell me what happened. What did you do? Abner said, look, I enlisted in the 1st Infantry Division. I see a bunch of big red 1 patches around here. I enlisted in the 1st Infantry Division. We fought our way across Europe, and eventually my unit liberated the Buchenwald death camp. Elie Wiesel stopped him and said, Abner, when did that happen? Abner gave him the exact day of the week, the date, the time. Elie Wiesel stopped him again and said, Abner, you saved my life. I was supposed to be executed the next day. And then Elie Wiesel went on to tell him, Abner, you've got to talk about this, because if you don't talk about that, something like this could happen again. So from that point on, Abner made it his mission, his purpose, to go to elementary schools, middle schools, high schools, synagogues, mosques, churches, civic organizations, anybody who would listen to him, to tell the story about his experience in World War II. And towards the end, we lost Abner 12 years ago, but towards the end, I was driving him around. I was taking him to these talks. And he was amazing. Julian, how old are you? 12? Okay, so don't take this personally, but sometimes 12-year-old kids, not you, but sometimes 12-year-old kids, they don't listen real well. I know, not you, but sometimes 12-year-old kids don't listen real well. But when Abner was telling these stories, you could hear a pin drop. And he always said the same things. It was 2 points. One is man's inhumanity to man. We can be cruel to each other. Maybe it's not something physically, but sometimes the words we use can be cruel and be biting, and we've got to stop that. Second thing he talked about was the consequences of indifference. That means you see somebody being bullied and you don't step up and do anything about it. And he said, you know what? If we just don't tolerate indifference, and if we are just aware of what's going on around us, we can make the world a better place. And I think those 2 points are very appropriate for the societies that we live in today. The other veteran I'd like to talk to you about is somebody very near and dear to me. It's my dad. We lost my dad November 28th last year, so it's almost been a year. My dad was 97 years old. Now, I'm going to tell you something. You got to promise not to judge me, okay? So I'm the youngest of 5 children, but I've got 4 older sisters and no brothers. See, you're judging me. I asked you not to. You're judging me. I know. I get it all the time. And no, I'm not spoiled. My wife and my son are here. They will attest to that. Maybe not. You said you've been married for how many? 55 years? 35 years for me, and I'm hard to live with. So I hope to get to where you are. But my dad's an amazing human being. Was an amazing human being. Still sounds weird saying that. He enlisted in a segregated army at the end of World War II. Now, most of you are old enough to know what that means, but just to be clear, when he enlisted in World War II, if you were a black person, you served in this unit. If you're a white person, you served in this unit. Fought in the Philippines at the end of World War II, got out, rejoined the Army just as the Korean War was starting, started off in a segregated unit in the Korean War. But here's what happened. We were getting our butts kicked. We got pushed down to the Pusan perimeter, and it wasn't looking good. And when the replacement started coming in, we didn't have the luxury of trying to figure out, hey, you're black, you go here, you're white, you go there. So the services were integrated. Actually, it happened before that, but practically they weren't integrated until we started getting our butts kicked. It wasn't for social reasons, it was for a practical reason. And you know what they found out? They found out that when you're cold and tired and hungry and miserable and afraid, and somebody offers to watch your back, you don't care what they look like or where they come from or how much money you have in the bank account. You're just grateful for the help. So my dad fought in the Korean War, shot twice, stayed in, commanded a cavalry squadron in Vietnam, stayed in after that, ended up retiring as a 3-star general, lieutenant general in the United States Army. If that wasn't enough, he decided to go to work for the government, and he became the director of a small organization called the Federal Emergency Management Agency, FEMA. He was appointed by President Reagan to be the director of FEMA. If that wasn't enough, he went to become the president of his alma mater, a historically black college and university outside of Houston called Prairie View A&M University. If that wasn't enough, he went back to Washington, D.C. and became the CEO of the Washington, D.C. public school system. So all those reasons, that's why I don't live in D.C. Those shoes are way too big to fill. My dad was an amazing human being, and he taught me values by how he lived. There was no duplicity. He had a philosophy of management that started with integrity is non-negotiable. Let your word be your bond. And it wasn't just the words, that's how he lived his life. And when I did his eulogy at his funeral, we received, between the time he passed away and the funeral, we received a letter from somebody that worked for him in Mainz, Germany. This would have been in the mid to early 50s. And what this guy described my dad being in the 1950s is exactly what I saw as my dad. And that's exactly the dad that I try to be for my kids and my grandkids. Service to others is an honorable calling. Any Rotarians in the room? Service above self is the motto. Yeah, service above self is something that I think if we all take to heart, if we all embrace it, our country's going to be an even much better place than it is now. It's been a real honor and a privilege to be able to spend just a couple minutes telling you a little bit about my story. I got lots of stories. I could go on forever, but I'm not a mayor yet, so I won't do that. So thank you very much for your time. Appreciate it.
Oh, that hoorah thing going on. If Rick doesn't mind, I'd like to introduce, and thank you, Wes. That background, I knew it would be exceptional. Just getting to know you, serving together on the Metro Board. And we did have lunch together, so now I owe you dinner.
Yes, you do.
Yeah, I sure do. You're going to tap on me. It won't be tomorrow. I'm on a plane at 6 a.m. for a National League of Cities tomorrow. Transportation Committee is meeting at 12:30, and I'll be there.
You going to be at the Metro meeting on Wednesday?
I'm going to have to call in. I got my computer ready to go. I'm still looking for that special note I didn't need the last time, but, you know, we evolve. What a blessing we all had tonight to hear Wes. Thank you again. New Brick inductees. John Mayu, United States Navy, is, do we have a certificate? Do we have something? Well, come on up. I got to get Rick moving. He used to be my guide in the, when he was on the board. He said, "You guys better be careful. The mayor, lead follower, get out of the way." I said, "Oh, okay." Well, I'm trying to be a little kinder. But if, John, if you'd like to come up, we have a certificate for you on, for our brick in the front yard. And we also have the gentleman who's got a brick for his dog. Your name's not here, but Phoebe, his name is that the dog's name? So we'll present those.
Now I should beat the dog.
Oh, go ahead, Rick.
Where would you like me? Okay.
It's only 6 months ago, you said, "What, you got a Veterans Committee?" Oh, here he is.
Thank you, sir.
Okay, now we need Phoebe's
Phoebe's,
owner.
Stephen,
Stephen?
come on up. In front of the village hall,
Is there a brick there now?
pardon me?
Am I brick there now?
No, TJ, when are the bricks, do you know when the bricks are gonna be put in? Oh, they might be in, you can check, but if not, we'll get, it'll be in
Is mine
soon.
a special color?
Yes. Navy blue.
Navy blue. There you go.
Oh, there you go. So, thank you, gentlemen. We're honoring your dog. We're honoring.
Yes.
Thank you
What
very
kind of
much.
dog
Thank
did you have?
Thank you, Ron.
Jack Russell Terrier? Oh, those are great dogs.
Yeah, well done.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you all.
All right, thank you, Jerry. All right.
And then to close out this evening, Rick, you want to
Yeah.
introduce?
So once again, I'd like to thank everybody for coming out. Herb, thank you very much. We have some members of our fire department here that are always here. We've got 5151 here. So I'd like to thank them. And, you know, I have Mayor Craig, I have to complain about this. Mayor Craig was on you were on a cruiser, correct? Destroyer, weren't you? Yeah, he was on a destroyer. I was in the real Navy. I was on an aircraft carrier. But, and I was in the Mediterranean, so we were on different parts of the globe. But it's always been a pleasure with Mayor Craig and me ribbing each other all the time. You wouldn't think that the Navy would do that, but we do that. So, but thank you so much. And at this time, we'll have Herb come up for the benediction. And then thank you. Thank you all.
Before I give the benediction, can we have just another round of applause for our speaker, Wes Becton? Thank you, sir. That was excellent comments. We dearly appreciate it. Heavenly Father, as we conclude this time of reflection, may we carry forward a spirit of gratitude for our veterans whose courage has preserved our freedom. May we honor their sacrifice not just in words, but in our actions, striving to be a nation worthy of their dedication. Let us remember the families who have sacrificed alongside them, and may peace and strength surround all who serve. With hearts full of reverence, may we go forth in gratitude and in unity. Amen.
Thank
That concludes our service.